Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the another episode of Product Management Interview Experience. I am Sugat, and today we have Priya, who has recently joined Swiggy as a product manager. Welcome, Priya.
Thanks, Sugat. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm really happy to be here, share some, good insights into the product management field, which I hope someone would have when I was starting off. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. We are very glad to have you, Priya, for today's episode. So, folks, keep watching the video till end because we're gonna be talking a lot of insights about what does it takes to be a product manager at Swiggy, understanding the entire interview process, and also some tips and tricks that helped Priya to crack these interviews. So, before starting, I would request everyone to please like, share, and subscribe this channel so that it reaches out to so many other folks and it motivates me to create some awesome contents. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Priya, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Sugat. So I'm a pass out from LSR. I did my BCom honors in 2017, started my career from there. I worked for Citibank for almost 2 years in Bombay, where I was in the foreign exchange sales market division. So I was looking at their digital products that they have to offer to all the clients in India and abroad that they have. So I think that's where that somehow sparked some sense into me that, hey, you know what, I want to know how a product is actually built. Like I was just doing the sales part of it, but like I wanted to know, like, okay, who decided what's going to be built. So I think that's when I decided that, hey, I want to be a part of like some kickstarting journey, see the entire process, the business also behind it. And I joined as an APM at a small fintech firm called Stashwin. These guys were into personal lending. They'd just been like 3 years old. So I joined in their product team, which was also pretty small then. But I got the opportunity to lead one of their products, which was a baby when I joined. I think that experience essentially helped me to know all the faces of product as well as business. Because I think fintech is something where a product manager also needs to be a business product owner. So yeah, I looked at I looked at sales, I looked at marketing, I looked at product design, operations, setting up a team, so the technical aspects as well. Uh, Post that, I joined as a product manager at goodie, which is basically a digital wallet company. There also I joined in the lending vertical, but I was looking at a separate product. So I was looking at the pay later product, which is also a very interesting place to be in, provided the pay later business actually moving across India and the world. So the reason for shift was that I had been part of lending, but I wanted to even be just excel in that niche as well. So decided that, okay, let's try some new product, let's try it in a new ecosystem. So I think MobiKwik, being a payments company, has a very deep integration across a lot of verticals, a lot of complications, great problems to solve. And yeah, so I was there for a year. And when I came across the opportunity at Swiggy, I think I was more than happy to jump on it, because I'd been in the fintech and the finance industry for almost 4 years now. And I really wanted to make sure that as a product manager, I'm very diverse and I am industry agnostic. So that's where I felt the next challenge was. So that's what motivated me to join Swiggy, and obviously I'll talk about like in detail what all exactly excited me about this particular opportunity in Swiggy.
Hey, thanks, Priya. I think that was a really interesting journey, right? You mentioned that, hey, you
Yeah,
started your journey from a sales, then pivoted to a product management into fintech, and now finally working as a PM at a food tech company. So,
yeah.
can you give some insight, like what actually helped you to transition your journey from a sales to a PM track? Like, was it a easy transition, difficult transition? Because a lot of aspirants are in similar space where they want to
Yeah.
transfer from sales to APM PM role. So would love to hear some insights around that.
So I think initial one or two positions, especially the APM position, was definitely not easy because I didn't know the domain, I didn't know the industry all that well, and definitely I didn't know anything about product. So I think that was a little difficult, on not only to get the opportunity but also to survive there. But that was a very, very steep learning curve. I think people who are looking to break into product management, irrespective of whichever background they come from, it be sales, marketing, operations, I think a great starting point is a product management internship, apprenticeship, or an APM program. Simply, because I think the companies having, and especially smaller companies having their APM programs, they are extremely flexible about getting all sorts of people because they want more hands on deck. They also want young folks and people who are very, very eager to learn because they know that they are the ones who's going to do the hustle. So I think that's something that's a very good starting point. You'll have to do a lot of dirty work, but I think that dirty work actually makes you learn, like, okay, this is what product management is. This is what I like doing. This is what I don't like doing. Now let me just make my skill in it, right? So I think, yeah, so I think that starting point is very good. And the other piece is, I think we sort of underestimate the power of networking. Just a fun fact that after City, the three of the jobs that I've got, I actually got it through LinkedIn. Not through people, actually not through people I knew or like I had some connection with, just by like connecting with people, making a network, being very active, making it very clear what I'm interested in, what kind of person I am, what have I done. So I think that kind of work always pays off. So I think that's something we probably underestimate, but networking done right can really, really help you.
Very true. I think I have heard and even experienced the same how networking plays a key role in the transition of
Yeah.
any individuals, right? Awesome. So that was some great insightful, right, about your journey of transitioning into APM from a sales. For the viewers who are from a non-product experience, right? Can you also help them understand how does your normal day looks like as a product manager?
The most interesting thing that at least I find it very fascinating is that no one day is similar to the other. Like, if I had to define it, like, okay, how does my usual day look like? It's very difficult because usual days are also very different. But if just simply put, I would just say that a product manager is essentially a mini CEO. So just the way you can't define what like a CEO does to his days, right? You can't really define what a product manager does. It's true that we are not we're not the experts, so we don't actually make the design on using the fancy design tools. We don't actually do the engineering part, but we are the glue that makes everything stick together. So if you say my how does my day look like is, I think 70 to 80% of it is actually stakeholder management and to bring everyone on the same page and to just make sure that the wheels are moving in the right direction. Then obviously it is in stakeholder management. You have like a lot of teams you need to interact with, and it'll be your technical team. There'll be like designers. There'll be your salespeople. There'll be growth teams, and obviously there'll be like say senior folks like senior management, the CEOs and CFOs that you need to manage and like set the expectations for. So one key part of my day, it's different every day, but is doing that. The other part is to actually do some deep work, to know what's the short term, what's the long term of the product that I'm looking at, what can I do different, and what can move numbers, right? So I think to be able to envision that and put it in a very structured form is something that is constantly going on. So we have to do it for the smallest of decisions that, hey, I just have like one guy and I have 10 things to do. How do I plan it? From saying that, hey, these are the 10 things that we need to build, and that's going to move the needle to the CEO. So I think decision making and structured thought process, they're like everywhere, smallest to biggest decision. So I think that's how I would define my day. That's how it goes.
I'm very correct. I think 70 to 80% time does get spent in stakeholder management and meetings and all, and rest
Yeah,
part is when you actually work and get few things done.
yeah,
Awesome.
mm,
Uh, Thanks, Priya. I think this were a couple of insightful things which we learned about your day-to-day activities. Now let's move to the part where most of the viewers are
yeah,
waiting for about your entire interview experience at Swiggy. We would love to hear as detailed as possible, starting from how you got that call to what were the
yeah.
different process rounds and what were the different few type of questions.
Yeah. So I think how I got the opportunity was again, as I mentioned, it was purely through networking. I was in connect with the person who's my current manager, just in general, because product folks who are like good and probably a little senior in their area write a lot of content, which is very insightful. So I like doing that on LinkedIn, follow the required people, and you never know what opportunity comes by. So I tend to stay connected. So I reached out to them and say, I thought you were hiring for a team. I'm interested. Would you like to have a chat? And he was like, cool, let's catch up. You can just like write an email to me, and then I'll probably organize a call. So I think my first round was essentially an exploration call with the person who's currently my manager. So he's a senior folk in the one of the Swiggy verticals. So yeah, so I think first was an exploration call, which was like a 30 minutes call, where essentially it was not a very deep call, but it was to understand my fit for the role, the company, the culture, everything. That hey, should we go ahead or not? So it was basically just scratching the surface. That okay, are you good? And like should we go ahead and do a deep dive? So I think first was that basically just understanding my job profile. What do I do? What kind of things have I done before? Because I had zero food tech experience, but I did have good product management experience. So I think that was just a fitment call, as we call it, that hey, the checkbox is and now we can go ahead in the process. So round one was that. A very interesting thing that I really liked about Swiggy actually was they were like super, super, super organized. They had a portal where they used to tell me what the interview is going to be about, who is it going to be with, send me reminders automatically that hey, your interview starts in 15 minutes, and exactly, and you have the option to reschedule it. So I think it was smooth. It was the experience was extremely smooth. So I think round one was that. After I passed the fitment round, basically every round had a theme around it. So you were tested only on those particular skills that fit those themes, right? The composition of each interview was a combination of resume related questions, very round specific questions, basically general, what do you know about that particular theme, and then it was obviously problem solving, right? That okay, hey, how would you solve this problem and like that problem, and then it would then be last would be culture fit, that they would want to understand that how would you react in certain kind of situations, which is more of like people and structure oriented. So that's broadly how all the rounds were structured, which obviously the differentiation in terms of what was given more weightage differed as per whoever was taking the
Got it. So in total, how many rounds were there, Priya? And what is the total
interview.
duration it took?
So I had 6 rounds, and after like the exploration call, every round was 1 hour each. So yeah, I think they were mostly like quite spaced. I think 1 week and 2 weeks. I think so the entire process. I think I was through with all the interviews in 1.5 months. That was also probably because it was like November, December, a lot of holidays, and also I was working, so I had very limited time slots back then. So it's not so yeah. So I think 1.5 months I was able to cover like all the interviews, and I had the offer in my hand. So my second round was essentially called Product Sense, which was taken by a very senior person who was a product lead essentially in the firm. So here, the structure was that 80% was actually a case study where she gave me like a question that, hey, you know what? Tell me how would you design a feature in Swiggy app which allows you basically to couple things from different restaurants and give an order, right? And place an order, which currently doesn't happen, right? Because we have to if I have to order from two separate restaurants, I have to order it once and then pay and then order it again and then pay. It's a hassle. So it's obviously a very, very evident hassle that everyone faces. So I think she asked me how would I solve it, and the expectation essentially of the answer was not only that, hey, you know what, I'll just put this feature and press the button. No, it was about a detailed plan and how would I do the consumer journey. So one thing about Swiggy is that they are consumer backwards. Whatever solution starts, it always starts from the consumer. Like okay, how will they feel about it? What can I do to like please them or like create delight for them. So they wanted to have that consumer backward thinking in me, where you design and tell me that, hey, what will the experience look like? Tell me how do you envision the UI and the UX, which is a very very important part. So I think this was majorly what the discussion was about. How I went about it essentially was I broke down the problem, and said that probably there has to be a plan before that. Okay, where am I planning to do an initial pilot on? Why a pilot? Who am I targeting? So I think these are the basis or assumptions basically that I laid down, and then I have jumped onto the solution. I think one of the very important parts of actually presenting a solution is not just saying that, hey, you know what, I'll make this page, I'll make that page, I'll make this box. Is not that. Actually, they are not looking for the perfect solution. They are looking for a structure. So I think even though you can take time, and actually you should take time and think that, okay, present the problem statement essentially, and then say that, hey, my solution will cover X, Y, and Z. It can be anything, it doesn't matter, but if you're organized in your thought process, I think that's what's going to help you. So I look at the structure that, okay, what, why, who, scale, and then I thought of like a skeleton, right? That what all do I need? Do I need a section? Do I need a checkout page and this? And lay down the structure, walked the interviewer through that, and also then went like L1, L2, and L3. So I think it just helps you to be organized and not get like confused that, hey, what did I say earlier? And just write it down, make a structure, whatever sticks. So I think, yeah, that's very very important. But that's how I went about it.
Awesome. Thanks again. This was a, I think, interesting question which
Yeah,
we used to always discuss, right, when Swiggy is launching this feature.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, and as you mentioned, right, nothing right or wrong answer. It's all about the structure and the approach you follow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Awesome.
they are testing how you think about actually developing the product. Because this is what you're going to do in the end. So how do you take up this problem is what they are looking for you to solve.
Perfect. Let's keep proceeding and here to your upcoming journeys as well
Sure,
rounds.
cool. Yeah. So the third round was actually, surprisingly, I don't think many people would know it. Like, okay, this is also required. Is was business sense and data oriented decision making. So essentially, this was taken by some AVP who's a category. Basically, he used to lead business across all categories, and it was to understand how comfortable are you with numbers, how well you can calculate as well as use them to your advantage, and all the business strategy concept, how familiar are you with them? Something like, do you understand what is top line? Do you understand what is bottom line, which is basically the money someone's going to make? And like, how do you make decisions using those numbers or those concepts in general? Because like I said, in fintech, it's obviously very important for you to be very, very tightly integrated with business and their strategy, because it's a number game anyway, and it business, a lot of it drives product, which is also not true that much in Swiggy, but still you need to know the business to be a good product manager. So I think that's what they were testing. Some of the sample questions that they, so since I belong to fintech and I was leading a lending product, they asked me that, hey, what how does the P&L of your product, the profit and loss basically statement of your product looks like? Tell me about it. What are your major costs? And like, and he used to ask me that, okay, what does this cost me? What does that cost me? How long does it last? How do you guys make money? Like, where is the income coming from? So as simple questions as these, but obviously, it was not to his domain, but it was actually to my domain. So I think that was very interesting. And the one of the case studies that he had asked me was that, and very simple, was, you're a restaurant owner. Now tell me, how will your P&L statement look like? Tell me about what will you count as revenue? What will you count as like your earnings and stuff? And how would you probably estimate like the money you're going to make in a year? So I think that was a guesstimate plus a case study where essentially he was not testing me on like, oh, exact numbers, but it was like, do you know what's going to go in the book? I might have said thousand and it might be lakhs, but it was like, hey, that there has to be one line item there. So that was my round number three, which was business understanding.
And pretty interesting case study as well, again, right? The entire PNL part of it. I haven't heard
Yeah,
much of while talking to other PMs, right? This kind of rounds. But
yeah,
again, the PNL part of it from a PM perspective is amazing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so the next round that I had was the fourth round, was essentially with the director of product, which was about product strategy, vision, and road mapping. So this round essentially was to test your big picture thinking, right? Your prioritization skills, your stakeholder management, your road mapping skill essentially. That are you can you like zoom out and like build a road ahead? So I think, yeah, this was mainly focused on one of the key things which I usually used to take very lightly is ruthless prioritization, to be able to see ahead, right? Which I should say it's like easy, it's for senior folks to do, but actually it's not. Fun fact, like you managing your own time is also a part of product management. So how you manage your time is actually one of the skills you need to have to be a product manager. Because if you can't manage your own time, then how do you manage other people's time, right? So, yeah, so this round was actually about that. I was tested and asked questions like, hey, you have to decide, what to build and what not to build. So, how do you take that call? Like, what is the technique that you use? So, I think my answer was structured around that, hey, I do an impact backward analysis. That, if I'll know I should know at least the goal is, because, goals can be anything and usually they come from top down, so it can be cost reduction, it can be, increasing your numbers, it can be about growth, it can also be, just increasing your average order value. It can be anything. So I said I would align myself to that, and then I would probably think of like I don't know, solutions have no end, but I will obviously assess those solution in terms of the numerical impact it's going to have, numerical as well as like qualitative as well, and then assign their priority. So I think that was something that that they also need because as you know, like product managers are like bombarded with requests from everywhere, and this is a skill that you need to have. So also, like I think I was given a sample of couple of things that, hey, how would you do your 369 approach in terms of a roadmap, which means that how do you make a 3 month plan, how do you make a 6 month plan, what do you do with 9 month items, right? Because essentially 9 month item has to be a part of, just like say it's just there in my head, it's not too focused, but it's not that. You need to put it out and like structure your source even for 3, 6, and 9, even though you just said three. So yeah, it was that, one of the very interesting things that he asked me was that, what if you had the opportunity to design like a feature at Swiggy for yourself or anyone, like what would that be, right? So actually, I had suggested it would just be convenient to me, honestly. I don't know if it was creative enough or not. I had actually suggested that probably Swiggy should come up with a calendar, that I don't want to order every day. They should just detect my location, make the suggestion, or I can just like set it like an alarm, right? Just every day, 10 a.m., just get me coffee from here every day, because that's what I do when I go to office, like order coffee at like 10:30, 11. So I think that's something that was pretty interesting. More like a wish than a thought. I was like, yeah, I already know. I've been begging for the solution.
No, I think I don't know about the viewers, but I'm really enjoying this interview experience, right? Like it seems so many
Yeah,
refreshing content which you're telling about, and
yeah,
also getting to know many new things about Swiggy, right? The way they interview
yeah.
people, their entire culture speaks a lot about them. Yeah.
So yeah, I think I really enjoyed the interview process. It never seemed very grilling or daunting or scary. It was a very very healthy conversation. You would like I wouldn't realize when an hour passed. I'm sure the other people did probably, but it was a very very fruitful discussion. It was, I think they've designed the interview process very well. Um, and my next round essentially was about execution excellence, which I never actually thought that how can someone assess that like on an interview, right? Because everyone has the only thing that's different for sure in everyone's organization is the way things get done, and that was like the tricky part. So I had this interview with the engineering manager who I was going to work with if I got hired, and that entire interview was essentially about how you can translate the business rules into executable documents, vision for your teams to execute on, be it design, be it tech, and like what is your way of working, again like fitment, that will you be able to do that translation well, will you be able to understand both the sides well. So I think that's where we did a deep dive into like how do I interact with my engineers, how do I act with the people who are QAs, how do I make sure that I'm able to match my style to the people I'm working for? Because I think one of the most important skills that the product manager needs to have is to be able to express themselves very very clearly, and keep in mind the audience, right? What I write for a CEO would probably not be the same what I would write for my engineer, or like the input my designer would want to, have a vision of what he needs to build. So I think documentation, the way you express yourself, structure yourself, and that understanding of the audience is very important. So I think, yeah, so that this was mainly about execution. How do you manage people who are actually not reporting to you? So you need to guide, like, and tell people what to do, even though like they're not reporting to you, because usually the it's quite transactional, right? That people listen to their bosses. That's how it works. But I think product manager's job is to get work done without getting people to report to us. In fact, I think no one reports to us until unless there's a product team. Like all the folks we need to get work done from, no one reports to us. So that was something that was being tested here, I think. Yeah,
Yeah. Just to call out, I think generally what the notion is with the viewers is that hey, it's an engineering
yeah,
round, so might be technical questions. While it is
hmm,
true for some companies like Google, where they really test on systems
yeah,
design concepts and all, but in most of the other
yeah,
companies I have spoken,
hmm,
engineering round is more about how well you can work with the engineers. It's like conflict
yeah,
resolutions, how you write PRDs, user
yeah,
stories. So those kind of things are being only tested and not deep dive technical
yeah.
knowledge and ask you to code sort of thing. Okay, let's move to the final round. I think here would love to see, how the entire discussion was around that. And then I
Sure.
probably assume you got the offer.
Yeah, I think my last round was actually, like, now in hindsight, I was quite good because the vertical that I've been assigned now in Swiggy, it was actually with the AVP of the business, horizontal, who was looking all at that vertical as well, who had spoken to me. And this last round, which was more like business and product, it was not actually testing me on any skills, but just to have a good conversation and know that, hey, do we have that chemistry to actually work together? As simply put like that. So yeah, so I think this was basically my first intro to, okay, what kind of problems will I be solving? Because when we think of Swiggy, we just know what's in front of us. Like, hey, are you part of Instamart? Like, oh, are you like just handing Ginny, or like, oh, how do I order? And you'll come, you'll work with restaurants, but that's not it. Swiggy is actually cut into like so many verticals. It's actually one of like my jobs, which has been actually to document, okay, how are people organized? I'm confused. There's so many people, so many verticals. So yeah, so I think that was my interface on, like, say, what am I going to do? Like, who am I going to work with? What are the problems that I'm expected to solve in the coming 3 6 months? So more than it being an interview, it was very transactional in the sense that, okay, I want to know, like, okay, what will I do, right? Why should I join you? Instead of also obviously him uh, understanding that, okay, why should I take you? It was a very balanced conversation, and this was basically to understand that, okay, do we fit in each other's requirements? Do we fit as people? Do we fit as culture? Do we need a person like you? Do we want a person like you? And like, do I want like someone like you to mentor me? Because he's also one of like my mentors, because I work very closely with him. Apart from obviously my managers and other people, but on he's basically the business counterpart of the product that I'm handling. So I think, yeah, it was very conversational. I could ask as many questions as I want. I asked a lot of them, to be very honest. I said, okay, how do you do this? How do you do that? What am I supposed to do? Earlier, I was asking more on Swiggy, but now I was asking related to myself. Okay, I want to know what I'll be working on. What who will be with me? Do I have this team? Do I have that team? Do you want me to, study something? Do you need something specific and stuff like that? And even questions like, hey, what are you going to do for like my growth? I know it just sounds very upfront, but we need to realize that even the good folks are hard to find. So it's definitely a transaction where the company is also gaining if you join them, right? So I think it's very important to ask these questions as well and be very clear about it. That hey, what are you going to do for my growth? How are you going to make sure that as the team grows, as the company grows, I also grow, and probably I don't want what everyone else wants. Can you support me in that? So I think these are very important questions to ask if you have very specific or anything to make sure that okay, for me fulfillment is defined by X. So to clarify that, hey, will you give me X? I think it should be point blank, very clearly, and good companies like Swiggy, they're more than happy to answer it because they pride themselves in their culture, the way they treat people, and they consider people their biggest asset. So they are more than happy when you ask these questions. They're interested in answering you. So I think the last round was essentially this.
Thanks a lot, Priya. I think these are some awesome
Yeah,
insights again. I think folks would really enjoy watching this entire episode and to get so many new things from out of this, right? So, thank
yeah.
you again for being a part of this channel and sharing your
Thank you for
experience and
having me.
contributing to the community. And we wish you all the very best for all the opportunities and
Thank you.
challenges at Swiggy.
Thank you, Sugat, for having me. It was great chatting with you. Hope I can help some folks get through.
Absolutely. And do let me know if you hear any LinkedIn messages saying that this video helped you, help them, to get
Yeah,
to their dream jobs.
yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.